phone ringer off.
Hey everyone, it's Anastaci Pacella. I'm here with Tzynya Pinchback tonight, and we're going to talk about Tzynya's experience with the artist residency Enjoy this summer. We'll talk about some beautiful photographs and very sensual poems that she wrote this summer. So Tzynya, first question, what drew you to the residency Enjoy? Why'd you apply?
Well, interestingly, I read I found out about it right before the shutdown. Interesting. I entered one space and then things kind of, went awry. But I was coming up on 2 years in remission from cancer. And at the beginning of, I'd say maybe no, not the beginning. That's not true. Somewhere in the middle of my cancer treatment, I I decided the best way for me to get through it and just to get through every day was to just strive to find one item of beauty every day. One thing, a person, an object, an experience. It got to a point of being like the most minute detail. Like I could sit up that day in bed, or I could walk. Like I had radiation for 6 weeks, so every day, 5 days, I was going to radiation, and I wasn't able to walk without in a wheelchair. So the time that I could get from the door of my car to the door of the hospital without needing a wheelchair brought to me at the curb, that was like a day, like something to be gratitude or grateful for, or a thing of beauty. So I kind of adapted that mindset, and I decided that I was just going to move through life that way. After I was done with treatment and once I went through remission, I just figured that this was something I needed to strive for, was trying to find gratitude and things to be joyful about, especially when times were not joyful. So when I heard about the Joy Residency, I thought, well, this will be really interesting because I had started writing poems about nature and taking walks in the park and learning to identify birds and doing a lot of bird watching. So I thought, well, this brings me joy and it makes me happy. So I figured I would too. Um, and then COVID happened, and it turned into an entirely different type of endeavor and response. Um, so it was no longer about, I, I really entered, my entire plan was the original, if you remember, the original title for my project was I Long to Sing You into Bird. I wanted to write a collection, just a small group of nature poems about birds and trees and landscapes. And my project completely turned into something else. Um, so, but I was open to that, and I'm kind of glad that happened. So, but that's what originally drew me to the residency.
Yeah, and I think in some of the work that you did, the cancer treatment and your experience through that did come up, but also right at the beginning of when we were starting to meet was when George Floyd was murdered, and so there was this whole. I mean, not that Black Lives Matter ever wasn't happening, but there was a much bigger resurgence of it again, and so you ended up writing a bunch
Right.
of beautiful odes to your family and taking these gorgeous photographs. One of the things that I'm always struck with in your work is how you use beauty and humor and sensuality together to show a really nuanced picture, because there's also often really hard truths in your work.
Yes. And it's really it's really funny because a lot of times when I'm working on something, I be this is sound weird, but I be drawn to the grotesque. And I think in everything that I write, I'm trying to find beauty. So I'm trying to find truth. I I tend to write about what scares me. And I feel like if I confront it in writing, that it'll make me a little less scared. Or I guess it's sort of like there's a monster under your bed and you pull back, at least you can see it. So I think that happens with my writing a lot. So oftentimes I will I will be kind of drawn to the grotesque in something, but I want to it's like I want to find or extract whatever beauty there is there, or I want to refashion it over into something that that is beautiful. Something that's maybe a little dangerous. I'm drawn to I'm drawn to ideas and images that maybe we're that we shouldn't be intrigued by, and I want to explore that. Like I want to explore the fact that, oh, this is bad or this is bad for us, but you know, deep down on some level, we kind of want it a bit. And what does that say about us that we kind of crave that a little bit? So, with the shutdown, everything just happened overnight. It literally, it's like one weekend or one week I was reading with friends and going out, meeting friends on the Cape for lunch, and then the next minute we're shut down and we're done. And then, the protests were going on, and we were just lambasted with this onslaught of, you know, police brutality, and then just the clash of it. It's like all of a sudden it was just in our and literally the world was burning around us. And I thought, okay, now I'm in a residency where I have to write about joy. And I decided, yeah, and I decided, one thing I decided was we had a couple of my partners, one of his family members died from COVID. Um, very unexpectedly. We didn't even know that he had gotten sick. And I spent a weekend or about a weekend with him, kind of him, taking photos of him. He was so withdrawn and he was so silent. And it just was really heavy in our house. All this, there was too much for words. And what I realized was with George Floyd's death, with the protests, all over the country, um, with the counter protests, with the white supremacists that were going out and spray painting and, defacing buildings and, in the name of, Black Lives Matter. And it just seemed like every image of Black people and Black bodies was just grief, it was sadness, it was this virulent, um, just heavy. It was a heft.
Yeah.
And what I wanted to do, or what I decided to do, I don't even know if I thought about it, if I just did it, was I wanted to capture photographs of us and just, not necessarily joyful photographs of us laughing and being jovial, but I wanted to catch just photographs of the mundane, of Black love and Black compassion. Um, my boyfriend shaving my head,
Yeah.
um, things like that. Us being in the backyard. Nothing. I didn't want. I really wanted it to be just photograph the mundane, um, because I didn't want not to normalize Blackness. because obviously I'm a Black woman. So for me, Blackness is normalized.
Right.
But I just want to celebrate the mundane. We're breathing and we're communicating with each other and we're waking up and moving through our lives, and not every image of Black love or even Black sorrow, not everything is just a brick and a heft of sadness. I really
Right.
seeing in the photo, just an everyday what I see when I wake up. I don't wake up in the morning and you know go to my partner and my daughter and start reciting protest poetry and painting protest signs and slamming my fist on the table. I wake up and I tell them, what I'm doing for the day. I embrace them. I kiss them. Sometimes I fuss at them. Sometimes, we eat pancakes. It's just life. Wanted to capture life.
Right.
And I hope that's what my work did and what I was doing. I hope that's what I'm doing that.
I think, I think so. These pictures are so tender, and like, yes, they are about you and him, but when I look at them just from the way they're photographed, they're mostly about his hands and the care that his hands
Yeah.
are
Yeah.
providing. They're absolutely beautiful. And
Thank you. Thank you. I'm a hand person. I love hands. I'm really big on hands.
I wonder if it
And
has
I'm a
to
very
do,
tactile person too. So
yeah, I believe I can totally see you being a tactile person because of the sensuality with how you speak every in your poems. It's There's so much about the touch and the feeling all in it. I wanted to show these ones of your daughter as well. This series is really striking. Um, there's these,
these are
and
my
these all
favorite
go
because,
together.
well, it's my daughter. So yeah, we actually took those on 4th of July. I don't know if you can tell, but her toe actually has an American flag painted on her big toe. And I am drawn to the American flag as an emblem, as a symbol, um, as an item. Um, I I have been for years. I probably have hundreds of photographs from just years of the American flag. And for so long, I just didn't, I never really thought much about it until I moved to New England and living in Plymouth. We have the big Thanksgiving parade, and for like a before and maybe almost a week after Thanksgiving and after the parade, they have this humongous American flag that's hanging over um, Water Street ahead of the parade. And then at the very end of the parade, they march and they're carrying an American flag. And it's probably like maybe a dozen or so people that are carrying it. The flag is the width of the street of Water Street, and it closes out the parade. And the first I witnessed the parade in person was in 2015, the year we moved here. And when I remember standing out and taking pictures of this flag because it was just it's huge, it's cold by that time. So it's billowing and it's billowing in the wind. And I just took photograph after photograph. I've always pulled the American flag as an emblem. And I remember that that at the end of the parade, 2015, it was closing out the parade, and this flag comes out and they're carrying it, and it's huge. I mean, it's imposing. It's so huge, and it's just bright red, and the white is really crisp in contrast, and the blue is just everything about it is so imposing, and it's gallant and it's sweeping and it's beautiful. a of an image. It's striking. And I remember standing at the top of the hill overlooking Plymouth Rock and looking at this flag being like carried so gently and tenderly, but with so much pride and ceremony. And it made me so incredibly sad. And right then I realized what it was is that flag doesn't mean that, but I'm an American. I'm I live here. And I remember I had this image that, they're holding the flag, they carry it kind of up, like kind of maybe right at, maybe I guess like eye level. And I remember thinking, that's what it is. I I I would not be carrying that flag. I would be under that flag. That's where I am as a Black woman in this country. I'm underneath that flag. And it means so much for so many people. It means a completely different thing. So I started playing with the image of this emblem that is, supposed to stand and that stands for pride and righteousness and perseverance. But if you turn it around, it's loose. You know, it's a one person, but it's an anchor for someone else. And so I started thinking about those images and thinking about, as a Black woman, that's exactly what it means to exist here in America. I'm a passenger and I'm also a stowaway. I'm anchored to, I'm moored to, but I'm also run aground, here. This so I started thinking about, just what, how these things work. And I didn't want to be that literal with this picture. The scarf here is actually the scarf my daughter gave. She gave me that scarf as a gift when she moved into college on move-in day. She gave me that scarf as a gift. And I wanted to play around with the idea of how something so beautiful and delicate as this little linen scarf, tied around, a Black woman's feet could be a shadow. Then tied around her head to hold her hair back, it could be a halo. So I just, this all kind of came out of and this whole image of the American flag. And then I looked up and found the American flag mask, which was just a stroke of luck. I don't even remember where I found it. And that image of her and it being pulled down half on her face, to me just says what I feel. That space, what is that interior, that space between Blackness and Americanness. And I think for most of us, most Black people in America, we exist in that space. We constantly have to interrogate that space. Um, and I think it's something that should be interrogated. And I don't think it's something that will ever stop being interrogated. There's a lot that happens, and a lot of sadness, a lot of theft, a lot of blood, but also again, a lot of joy. There's some goodness in that space, some honey in the rock, as my mother would say.
Yeah, that's you've just left us with so much to think about right now. But it's it is living. The United States has a really harsh and complicated history, and the good and the bad, these coexist together. But that image of the mask, masks themselves are so rife with imagery of like something that I'm putting on and pretending, something that someone is asking me to pretend,
Mm-hmm.
something that I wish could be, or something that's being forced on me. And these are so strong, and that look that she's giving right at the camera, but it's tired.
Yeah, it is. It is. There's a fatigue. It's not. And it's so interesting because my daughter, being of a different generation, their generation, my daughter, I look at my daughter and a lot of her friends, and they approach the way, I mean, even with Black Lives Matter really is driven by the creators of it are a younger generation than mine. And it's just really interesting to look at how they navigate this space of Blackness and how they confront it. And it's really interesting, like you said, because when I took that picture, we were doing those pictures, I kind of in my mind had a different idea. I didn't give her any instruction or anything. I kind of directed her a little bit, but I kind of wanted to see where it would go. And what she gave me was exactly that. It was fatigue. It wasn't anger. It wasn't it's visceral, but it's not aggressive.
Right.
And you don't have to be aggressive. I mean, you're American. You don't need to. I think being aggressive, I think an aggressive look in that picture in that instance would have been an othering. And that's really what this is. We're not other. We're not, you know, America and Black. We are, period. That's it. We're not othered, we're not annexed, we're not we're not a subcontractor to, you know, prime delivery. No, this is what it is. This is it. We're here. We are the daughters of this land, period. So I think if I had been behind the mask, I would have portrayed something different. And I think that I think just captured it really, really well. So she gave me she gave me what I needed, not what I wanted or what I was looking for, but she gave me what I needed. So that works.
Isn't that just the way, though, right?
Oh, yeah.
Oh my.
My daughter gives me what I want. She's always give me what she wants me to have. So yeah, exactly. Absolutely.
Would you? So you
And I'm
had
sure my
written.
mother would say the same so about me. So there you go.
So you had written a really touching poem that you had shared when you shared this image and Instagram on your takeover of the
Mhm.
Coeur d'Alene social media. Would you be willing to share that with us tonight?
Sure. Absolutely. So I actually wrote it for my daughter. Um, and I wrote it because she told me that I think her first year in college, she went to a small liberal arts college in Western Massachusetts, and which is obvious by the fact that I'm drinking out of a Smith College cup. So there you have it. But she just mentioned in passing that she's visible. She said sometimes on campus she felt invisible. And I just, I kind of sat with that. That stayed with me. And so I wanted to write something to her, a letter to let her know that you. And interestingly, at her graduation, when they the day before graduation, they have a ceremony where the alumni come back and they break them down by graduation year. And she said when she was walking around, when they were going in the procession, that a woman, another Black woman from an alumni from the class, pointed to her and kind of met her and said, "I see you." And these are two examples of how much weight that carried for her. So this is from that. Dispatches from the call. My daughter is Black, skin like turned earth, eyes the color of midnight. A black freckle on the underside of her wrist matches mine, and another just to the left of her smile. This land does not place for her, so I gave her a pickaxe before I had to walk. When we have been separated for a time, I greet her by pressing my nose to her face where the lush, springy hair feathers and lays flat against the skin to breathe in a scent that is familiar. That is me. All the memories of her since birth come flooding in a flash, and we are again grounded. Home. My daughter's first name is a woman born in 1814 Virginia, a woman who was made free at the age of 15 by the man who owned her, so she could bear and tend his children. A woman plucked from one captivity, shoved into another, a new plantation, a new geography, a new soil that did not require her hand. Years of pretend emancipation came to an abrupt end with his death, and she would flee north with the children to escape re-enslavement. The lack of a patriarch and a constant craving for what they once had scattered the children. Freedom is a taste not easily wiped from the tongue. Some went seeking fortune, others took full advantage of their skin and disappeared into whiteness, but none returned to her whole. My daughter's second name is carried vividly in the ache of a rural Tennessee woman of disputed racial identity. It is said that no word crossed her lips in service of jest or kindness after the night they stole her husband. Very tall, very proud, and very black, he was dragged from their bed by robed and masked men and hanged in his yard as she and their children stood witness, a punishment for the crime of marrying a handsome woman. Later photographs display her, steely eyed and grimaced, her black hair wrapped twice like a noose around her neck. I am black, skin the color of wet sand, eyes like dusk, hair coiled except for a swatch that has no pigment or curl and turns itself auburn in the summer sun. There is a birthmark on my neck, a right of soil, in the shape of a country with too many original sins to name. Country that does not record my signature on its manifest. I am simultaneously passenger and stowaway. How many trips north till I am free? How many nights till the robes and masks stop coming? Like the women before me, I am molded to and marooned on this land without the required currency to guarantee safe passage. Dear America, it is cold here on this road where your daughters have no home and no shoes. Thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing that with us. That's
share something.
my 4-year-old just came in
Thank
as you're
you.
finishing up your poem.
Mom,
Will you come over and say hi if you're going to be here?
I'm surprised my 4-year-old doesn't just come in and she makes the same amount of noise.
hey, Mama.
What's up, buddy?
Hi.
This is Tzynya. I'm interviewing her right now.
Hey, Mama.
Can
I share something on the ukulele, please?
right now it's not next when we have open mic on the second Friday, then you can play your ukulele, but right now it's not a good time.
Why?
Okay? Because right now we're talking about Tzynya's art. It's not our turn to share.
When it is our turn, can I?
When it is our turn,
I am interested in the
you
ukulele.
can.
Today?
No, not today. Can I finish and I'll come out in a little bit, okay?
When that
So
I miss
yeah,
that
working
age.
from home.
My daughter used to sit under my desk when I would write after work. She would sit under my desk, and I remember it just used to drive me crazy because I'd be working on something and writing or whatever, and she'd be sitting under my desk. And I miss that now that she's 23. I miss that. I miss having that little warm body, you know, just all fuzzy and full of energy and electricity, kind of sitting and hovering and climbing all around me. So yeah, it goes fast.
It does. I can imagine she doesn't fit under your desk anymore.
No, she doesn't. And now sometimes I beg her to just, sometimes I just want her energy in my space because our house is like a split level. So basically the whole first floor is like her bachelorette. It's like 2 bedrooms and a bathroom and, a laundry room. So I can't even hear her down there. Pretend that she can't hear me. So I call to her, I have to physically, she can't hear. But yeah, sometimes I can, and when she was away at school and she's going away, she's leaving for school next year. So, eventually I have to grow up and realize that, if it weren't for COVID, she'd be in grad school this year. So I have to grow up and realize that, eventually the bird has to leave the nest again and probably permanently. But, right now I'm not quite ready for that. So,
Yeah. Oh. So
I did go for the 4 years she was gone, and then she came back. That's what it is. She was gone and I was fine, and then she came back. So now she's back. She's older, she's an adult, she's a lot of fun. So I think when she leaves, it'll be a little harder, but
yeah, I'm sure that'll be
I'll come down to the Cape and I'll come hang out with you. Yeah. Yeah.
So we have a few more. Oh my God, I'm slamming doors. They left the door to my room open now too, so it's like that much louder. Oh well. So this was part of that same series, but there was also a series of look at how glamorous this medication is. You had done more work with cancer and finding beauty in this really difficult time. I've never seen such a glamorous collection of medication before.
Of medication and it's funny because there's like $1 jewelry in there, and there's like sentimental piece that but I wanted to approach this too because like my mom says, you don't have cancer anymore, you're in remission, to support groups, and just leave cancer behind you. And I'm a creative, so we're we never leave anything behind us, right? We just kind of put in a satchel and take it with us. And when we first went into the pandemic shutdown, and I remember the CDC was saying, and I was getting text messages from my doctors, from the cancer center, my oncologist, from CVS saying, you need to stock up on 3 months of medication. And so 3 months of medication is $4,000. What you see in that picture is $4,000 worth of medication. That's a lot. It's a lot of money. And what I was thinking of was how many people in America can't even afford to stock up on 3 months of medication. That was the first thing. And a few of those bottles are actually empty because, well, for one thing, don't have a stockpile of 3 months of medication either. But I just remember thinking how I was thinking about, okay, we're telling people you need to stockpile medication. Most people probably can't afford, most people who need that kind of medication probably can't afford to stockpile 3 months of it or 4 months of it. And then if it's medication that's on a prescription, most insurance providers will not allow you to do that. They won't grant you the ability to even fill those refills to that extent. And it's just like so much hypocrisy. Like is not aware what the right hand is doing. And so I just wanted to stage that. I had taken a picture of a bunch of bottles and arranged them like a and so I did a little bit of that. And my thinking with that is that we hide ugly things. Illness is ugly. We don't like to talk about it, and it's understandable, believe me. Um, but we hide it. We kind of wrap it in shame, and we kind of stick it, away in the corner. And like my mother said, don't call disabled writer, and don't use the term disabled, and don't hide your medicine, have it out, put it somewhere in a cabinet. And I thought, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to dress it up, and I'm going to put, rings on it and a coin scarf and drape it in pretty things. And there it is. I want it every day. When I up, I want to see it. When I walk out of the room. I want to know that this illness is here, this disability, temporary or permanent. I want to know where it is. So I'm going to dress it in jewels and coins so I can hear it when it's going around, when it's following and tagging behind me. I don't want it creeping up on me. I always want to be aware of it. So that's what I was kind of what I was thinking with that. And with the line picture is really simple. I'm working on a few pieces for like a little micro collection, and the title of it is "This Is Not a Lime," um, and very reminiscent of "This Is Not a Pipe,"
Yep.
you know, um, and it's not a lime. And I carried that lime. I don't anymore, but I for a year every week I had a line. I was going into the office to work. I had that line sitting, or I had a line sitting on my desk. I had a line sitting on my nightstand, and I every week I would get a couple of limes and I would carry them around, um, because that is the size tumor that I had. That my first doctor told me that I was experiencing anxiety, and that I really manifesting the pain. The physical pain or the physiological pain was a manifestation of my anxiety, my mental health, and was suggesting that I treat it with antidepressant, um, instead of physically examining my body. And this went on. It started in January. I went back in March and went back in May. The pain was going away. And eventually I went in screaming pain, screaming, and demanded a referral. And he sent me to a colorectal surgeon. And the physician couldn't even examine me. He says, I can't even examine you because you have a mass. He's like, so we're gonna have to do surgery just to even examine you. I can't examine you while you're awake. I need to put you to sleep. If the doctor between January and August had ever physically touched me, he would have seen, or he would have felt, that 4 centimeter mass. And maybe my cancer would have been discovered before it was stage 3B. Maybe. So, um, so that is not a line. That is the size of the tumor that I walked around in my body for 9 months in desperate pain, you know, pain all day, regardless of eating ibuprofen all day, pain all day, every day for 9 straight months. So, so yes, it is a line, but it's not a line. And I know I know with that picture and with the narrative behind the picture, it's really uncomfortable. It's it's very uncomfortable. That's the point. I need it to be uncomfortable. I need you to understand that as uncomfortable as it is for me to explain that, imagine how uncomfortable it was for me. And then I looked out. My cancer was a curator. I'm in remission. There are a lot of people that does not look out for. If my cancer had been just a little, if it literally had been in a different organ that is literally that close, it wouldn't have worked out. It wouldn't have been curable. And this happens every day. This is not a fluke. This happens every day to people, all the time. So I don't want, this is not a Lyme. It's not, you don't need to pity me. You don't need to sorry for me. I'm fine. I'm in remission. Um, and I'm working through that and getting better and stronger every day. But there are thousands of women who will not get better, who right now are standing against their kitchen sink and their family, and they're in pain. They're almost doubled over because someone is ignoring them. Someone is discounting them, not listening to them, and it will not work out for them. So that's what I want people to take away from This Is Not a Line. I just want you to think of all the people, all the women, disproportionately women of color who are walking around right now with 4 centimeter mass inside their body that no one, people who are asked and trained and sworn to take care of, and they're not. They're ignoring it. So that's the story behind that image. And the forthcoming poems, hopefully in a couple of months, but maybe might take a little longer.
Yeah. So you had shared a poem with it, and it was another one of these beautiful poems that you write that it's dark and it's raw, and yet it's still really eloquent. Is it ready for sharing, or are you still, is it in progress
Yes.
again?
You know what? It is actually it is in progress, but it's, it is what it is. Some things are always in progress. So
Yep.
so that's, we'll read it. It's you know, this is not a Lyme. This is the squamous cell carcinoma left to make home inside this body. 7 months till its protrusion forced hands to take me seriously. This is 4 centimeter tumor, so invasive it shook loose parts of itself and spread like fire. My body, its kindling. My body, its roadmap. My body, its folly. My body, all brambles and wind and fat. My body, a tree, limbs down, their bone beak ache blossoming. So that's in progress.
Thank you for sharing it with us anyways. I know, that can be, when we know that a work isn't quite there yet, it can sometimes be really vulnerable to share it. So thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, I just had to check my notes again. I'm like,
It's funny because sometimes it's harder. Yeah, sometimes it's harder to share work that you think is finished because you read it out loud and you realize instantly when you read it for an audience, uh-oh, it's not finished. So sometimes it's a little easier to read in progress because you figure like by saying in progress, then no one will hold me accountable to a bad poem. But to say, okay, she's working on it. She's working on it.
So long as you don't use that as a crutch or a mask.
I hope not. I do have an poem that I've been working on for 2011. I can't make it do close to occasionally, and I'll send it to someone to read, or I'll read it on mic or something. And I always say this is just the poem that just won't. It's it just can't. It can't born. It's just still incubating. So it happens. It happens.
Yeah. It'll come there. It'll get there. I'm sure. I'm sure you will bring it about and
It'll
give
get
it
there.
that caress that it needs. Before we wrap up, I'd be curious to know if now that the residency in Joy is over, is it still something that you're bringing into your work?
Am I still working in Joy?
Yeah.
Yes. You know what? See, I've got my Christmas tree in progress. I've got my little lighted sapling over there on a desk. And yes, I am I'm working on a few things. I am working on a collection of essays, which are very, very difficult. They're memoir essays, and I shared one through one of the Cordial Eye reading a couple of weeks ago, um, and it was just published, as a matter of fact, today in Raising Mothers. So very just amazing gratitude um, for that. And that's one of the pieces, the longer pieces that I started during the residency. But as I'm mapping out the essays, which cover this amount of time in my life when I left my and I really left with nothing, and just everything that was going on. And of looking at that time of my life, my daughter was small, and I'm kind of looking at that time of my life. It was I left my husband, I moved away to Nebraska, which was like my little exile. I wasn't near my brother, wasn't living near my brothers or my dad. And when I left my husband, I wasn't even pumping my own gas. My husband pumped my gas for me because I just, you know, couldn't be bothered to do it. I didn't want to do it. So I look at that time of me kind of refashioning myself over into utility. I had to learn to do things for myself. I had to learn to do things by myself. I didn't have anyone to depend on. And I had a little person who was fully dependent on. And so working through a lot of the different essays and outlining them, um, some of them can get a little dark. And I was thinking, I need some joy in here. Everything in that 5, 10 year period wasn't bleak. There were a lot of amazing things. And I just finished a draft um, about my daughter and I. She was, I believe, 14, her first year in high school. And we had gone through a really, it was after like a 2, 3 year custody battle through hell. Um, and we were in a crocheting class at Joann's Fabrics. And my daughter, who, if she approaches anything, can do it well. She could not crochet. She couldn't crochet to save her life. She can knit, she just couldn't crochet. And no matter how hard she tried, it just got this thing she was trying to make got worse and worse. And she literally just like threw it down and threw a tantrum right there. So I started laughing and she started laughing. And we laughed so loud. And I realized we hadn't laughed or hadn't heard the sound of us laughing for years. And we laughed so long and so hard, we were doubled over. We were crying with laughter. The instructor asked us to leave because there was like 10 people at the table in Joanne's Fabrics, and we're taking a class. And she and I are just, it's like it was contagious. And sort of scurried to the back of the store. We were going to go to the restroom and kind of like splash water on our face. Nothing worked. So we're in the back of the store and we're laughing. And she goes to pull away from me. And her little sundress strap breaks on it. The top falls down. And she's topless in this craft store. And I scoop her up and just pull her to me, like skin to skin, chest to chest. And I remember thinking, this is just like when she was an infant, skin to skin. And we are laughing. Her dress is broken. I'm trying to pull my cardigan around her. And we stumbled out the store laughing in tears, her dress half broken, and we stumble into the parking lot. And I just thought, this is the penultimate essay in this collection. If I don't get any other essay right, this one has to be right. So again, I'm thinking I had outlined all the essays and I was thinking, oh, I'm going to start with this and do this and move this one here and, have them, tell this kind of story. And I said, you know what? I'm going to start with this. This is where I'm going to start. I'm going to start with joy and with gratitude and then let everything else kind of, spool out there. So I am still trying to work in joy. Right. You know, the bleakness around us right now. I always want to be able to return to gratitude. I just, and I'm not one of those people. I'm not a Pollyanna. I'm not this, wholly optimistic person. I'm a pessimist. I'm, weird and strange and, you know, sometimes I have on black lipstick and blue wigs and I'm, under the bed hiding. But I just always want to return to gratitude. I just always want to return to some kind of joy. As much as that is humanly possible. And I'm still going to, my joy is equipped with F bombs and, you know, middle finger and, it is what it is.
Right. And I
But,
think that,
we do what we can, right?
yeah, I think that, that kind of, that that's a very grounded way to look at joy, because joy is not, it's different from happiness. Happiness is a state of
Right.
being, where joy is this experience. And I think I can't speak for you, but I often feel this sort of pressure to project a happy persona all the time. And that's really it's not true. Like,
Yeah.
lots of parts of life are so hard.
Yeah.
And it takes work to notice that and find those moments of joy, and really, especially when life is so heavy, like a lot of those essays that you've been working on. So it's really, I'm trying to like think of the right adjective, because I don't want to leave it flat. Like, your experience is very rich, but it's very important and bold and like very necessary to think back and wait a minute, no, we did have some good moments here, and if you forget them,
Mm-hmm.
that's that's really depressing. As depressing as things can be sometimes. um,
Yeah.
we need these
Yeah.
moments of joy to
I mean,
keep us.
I wonder what we're gonna, yeah, I wonder what we're gonna think back on 2020. Like, I wonder what am I gonna be to my grandchildren about 20? Kind of weird anecdotes and things, am I going to say I learned about myself and, you know, what kind of fun things and odd things will I remember or weird traditions will be born from, you know, having a collection of masks. I now have masks. I have a box of masks on my nightstand. I have bathroom closet masks in my car. Um, what's gonna come of that? Is it ever gonna be a time that I will see my grandchildren, like touch their nose and just say, "Oh no, don't touch your face." Like, is that going to be like the new normal now? Um, I wonder about things like that. So yeah, and that's saying a lot. I found out yesterday that I was kind of exposed to COVID, so I was really pissed off last. But luckily, I just found out maybe like 20 minutes before we started here that that person's COVID test came back negative. So so
That's
there's
so
a bit
good.
of joy on my people today. That's a big piece of joy. So that's good.
That's wonderful.
And this
Well,
tea that I'm drinking is joyous, delicious.
that's that's wonderful too. Um, I
And
think
I'm the only one you know who has her her, her Christmas tree, done. I'm that's where we are.
yeah,
This is for my mental health here. The lighted
absolutely.
Christmas tree. Oh,
Back back in April, we
that's
had a
joy
day.
too. That's
I'm sorry, I think I cut you off. I couldn't. Your internet was cutting out. What did you say?
this is a practice and joy for me. The fact that I put up the tree.
Yeah,
So,
it's
two
beautiful.
what? No, about a month and a week. I love I love a pink and white tree. I do. The pencil tree, everything is pink and white. I'm just going to be really this year, and I'm just going to decorate everything. Everything, everywhere in the house. I'm just going to put lights, fairy lights on everything. I know it.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
I just need everything twinkling and all tinseled and bejeweled here. So, but thank you. And I have to say, Anastaci, I have enjoyed the the residency. Thank you for selecting me and my work. I have really enjoyed it and enjoyed the work of the other artists. So it's been a great experience this summer. I really, really appreciate it.
That's so wonderful to hear. I want to make sure that everyone can see the work that you did because you did so much beautiful, beautiful work. If you want to check out Tzynya's website, it's tzynyapinchback.com. It's there at the bottom of the screen. And also follow her on Instagram at Black Pixie Dream Girl. And I still need to practice how I close these. I'm getting I'm getting over my camera shyness. That's been my practice lately. So I'm looking at the camera like, okay. But please, if you enjoyed this interview with Tzynya and you want to see more of the interviews that we'll be doing with the other artists from Artists in Residency, please like and subscribe. Follow us on Facebook and Instagram at The Cordial Eye.